Rather than faithfully execute the laws, he has rewritten them through signing statements, ignored them through secret legal opinions, undermined them by elevating ideology over facts. This administration's unbridled ambition to transform the executive into an imperial presidency in an attempt to strengthen the office has weakened our nation.
My fellow Americans, tonight I'd like to talk with you about immigration.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you go. That was brilliantly done. Talking, and of course, not about Barack Obama, but they put the words to Obama, and it fits. And joining us is Raffi Williams, Deputy Press Secretary for Youth and Conservative Media for the Republican National Committee, the RNC. Good to have you back, Raffi.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Well, my pleasure. All right, so let's talk about Hillary's immigration problem. I mean, that's a name that has been basically kept out of the whole mix since the executive order came down. What do you see as, or how do you see this hurting her or helping her as she presumably runs in 2016?
Well, I think you're seeing it hurt her because you're able to highlight how much of a politician she is, in the sense that she just blows the wind on any given issue and plays partisan politics rather than having a strong moral compass. She, in 5 times over the course of the 2000s, she was caught, or we have it on tape or print reporting of it, of her demonizing Bush for expanding executive power. But in this instance of one of the largest expansions of executive power ever done by executive decree here, Hillary is supportive of it because it's seen as being on the, supportive or being a team player here. And it's just crass politics that's so apparent to all Americans. So I think this is going to hurt her in 2016 because you're going to have our opponents continually remind people, look, this is the same woman who said that it was unconstitutional, it was bad for our democracy, yet when Obama does it, who she's going to be a third term for anyway, that she's supportive.
Yeah, no, that's going to be very interesting. She's going to have a lot of explaining to do, as they say, on a lot of issues, and whether or not she supports the president or separates herself from the president. But let's talk about this order and going forward. You see, Obama, in the minds of so many, spits in the face of the Constitution, and then says, well, if you don't like it, the solution is then you don't want me to be king, then pass a bill. That's not how it works. So my question is, how is the public going to digest all this as time goes on? They were against him signing an executive order and doing it on his own. Now they're saying, the media, which you're an expert in as well, hey, so will the Republicans shut down the government? It wouldn't be them shutting it down, it would be him.
Well, it's absurd to me, and it's so ridiculous, the spin they've tried to put on this. Remember, for 6 years, Obama's reason he didn't do immigration reform was because he couldn't take executive action on it. He couldn't issue an executive order, and that's just what he's done now. And now he's using shaky legal arguments to try to explain away his unconstitutional acts. Now, I think the American people are going to be very suspect of anything further Obama does, and they're going to be waiting for something to come out of the GOP-led House conference and the Senate here, especially because a lot of these the orders don't really go into effect until about 6 months down the road here. So the GOP has a lot of time to strategize and maneuver. But the media, as always, is trying to demonize Republicans and say that we're going to be the cause of whatever ill or woe might afflict the country. But instead, it's Obama who's deliberately poisoning the well after being rebuked by the voters in the midterm elections and after having strong polling saying Americans do not support this action.
Did you see Saturday Night Live at all? And their skit where they basically, they did that school, what was it called? I think yes, and they showed Obama pushing down the law down the stairs constantly over and over again, and he had the executive order character standing next to him who was shocked that it was that widespread and that broad of an executive order. I mean, that says something when Saturday Night Live takes that point of view.
Well, it's tapping into the mainstream consciousness of people who don't even follow politics. So this is really going to have a resounding effect here, and it's on people's radars. And when something like Saturday Night Live is able to take a shot at the president for really expanding his powers to levels never seen before, that he's in a bad spot. And the only thing that's going to get him out of this spot is if Republicans really bungle our response. We'd be very good and sharp and poignant with how we're going to respond to Obama's executive overreach.
The one Republican, Raffi, in the security team of the president, the defense secretary, Chuck Hagel, is now gone. And of course, Eric Holder is going to go. Do you think, in the case especially of Eric Holder's replacement, do you think that it's incumbent upon the Republicans to ask her some very tough questions in light of, Benghazi, IRS, and right on down the line?
Look, I think that if you let any nominee go through the Senate confirmation process without asking them the tough questions, you're not doing your job as a senator to the American people. You're not representing our wills and our interests. We need to make sure that whoever takes, especially cabinet level positions, is very well prepared, knows their stuff, and is ready to answer the hard questions. I think, I've heard good things about her. I don't know much about her personally, though, but I do expect hard questions to be asked.
Yeah, and one final question: the unemployed youth, the millennials, and all those people. This immigration reform bill, they have to understand that this is going to take some job opportunities away from them. Correct?
Well, look, anytime you're expanding the labor force like you are in this case here, without any expansion of the supply side or the demand side, you're going to run into problems. And right now, that's what we're going to be facing all Americans, not just youth, but minorities, whites, name it. Everybody's getting affected here.
All right, Raffi, good to talk to you. Raffi Williams, the RNC, ladies and gentlemen. We'll speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
And we'll be back, folks, with columnist at WorldNet Daily and founder of Americans for Israel, Minister Ben Kinchlow, after the break. But first, what is the most profitable and safest way to invest? I wish I had that answer. It's your hard-earned money, and it could all be pretty confusing at times. So here is investment strategist Monty Resnick to share some very basic investing tips. And you might, even though they're basic, you might not know them. So watch your Max to Money moment right now.
You're watching Max to Money.
We never know when interest rates will shoot up, but they can't stay near record lows forever. So if you're investing in bonds, now is a good time to start thinking about playing defense and making changes to your financial future.
Well, we all hear now is a great time to buy a home because interest rates are so low. But we all know that at some point down the road in the future, we don't know when, interest rates are going to rise. Interest rates and bonds have an inverse relationship. As interest rates go up, the value of the bond goes down. So the reason you really want to look at the bonds in your portfolio right now is to understand how you're positioned for a rising interest rate environment.
If retirement is around the corner, be careful with your bond selection. Understand what individual bonds you own, as well as bond mutual funds. Then talk with your financial advisor to figure out the best strategy for you and your family. I'm Hannah Ostapchuk.
Get more money news at Newsmax.com.